How are chemicals and plastics regulated? Well, for the most part, they're not. And it's shameful that they're not. For example, in the US, a compound called bisphenol A, an extremely common chemical in plastic, is barely regulated at all. And the only reason why it is regulated was because industry decided having BPA in plastic bottles was an embarrassment to them. Most other products, they're not regulated. And this is true largely throughout the world. The good news is that the European Union is now set on a course to change that, to incorporate modern science into the regulation of materials like plastics. Everyone thought plastics were inert. They didn't understand that chemicals leaching out of plastics, hormone-disrupting chemicals, can work at parts per billion, at what seem to be tiny, irrelevant concentrations. And so what happened was that industry built up a huge revenue stream based upon the sale of plastics they thought were inert, but now we know are not. And so the science of regulation has to catch up to that error. And when we think about really what's preventing plastic chemicals from being regulated properly, I'm sorry, but it's pretty much all about money. The primary testers of chemicals in plastics are babies, because they're only tested after they get out of the lab and into the marketplace. That's not right. We need to be testing chemicals before they go into the marketplace, before they become widespread, and before babies become the principal object of testing. One of the biggest problems we have in testing plastic chemicals is regulatory agencies test them one at a time. But that's never the case. We are always dealing with mixtures of chemicals. That's called the cocktail effect. I want to ask you this. When your doctor prescribes you a new drug for treatment, what's the first question he asks? He asks, what else are you taking? Physicians understand the cocktail effect. They understand the absolute need to take that into account. And yet, the chemical regulatory agencies have failed utterly to do that. Let me give you one example, very simple. High doses of an endocrine disrupting compound can cause weight loss, can cause animals to become thin. Low doses can cause morbid obesity. Exactly the opposite effect at what happens at high doses. So if your regulatory tests assume that high dose testing can reveal everything you need to know, you miss all of the low dose examples, all the low dose effects if you don't test at low doses. And regulatory agencies do not test at low doses for the most part. So what happens if you have agencies testing in the wrong way, where they ignore low dose effects? You have hazardous materials in commerce, all over commerce, like bisphenol A, like phthalates and others. That's what goes wrong when you don't use modern science to test your chemicals. All regulatory agencies around the world use an outdated concept from the 16th century, and that's the dose makes the poison. We're starting to see some movement. For example, the European Food Safety Authority has called for an international effort to understand what modern science means for regulation. And they even have gone farther. They now recommend that the amount of BPA we can be exposed to on a daily basis is actually 100,000-fold what they thought just a few years ago. That's a big change, 100,000-fold. And it's very likely that a range of other chemicals that are endocrine disrupting compounds like bisphenol A will have their tolerable daily intake, what's safe for us, reduced by a similar amount. This will revolutionize the chemical industry and move it dramatically towards sustainability.